Have you ever been through something that you thought you were totally prepared for, and then when you faced it, you found out it was a whole lot harder than you ever imagined? And you're like, dude, what was up with that? And maybe it got to a place where you felt crushed or defeated. Maybe you thought you were unstoppable. Maybe you thought nothing bad's ever going to happen in this situation. These people aren't going to betray me. This person's not going to leave me. This stuff isn't going to happen. And then it happens and you're like, what the what? And it crushes you. What do you do with stuff like that? Do you let those situations and circumstances, those heartbreaks, define you for the rest of your life? Some people do, but some people don't. Some people choose to rise up from their lowest of lows and become a new person. And I'm saying this because that's been my story. And if that's been your story too, then I encourage you to come along with me this time because I've got some more encouragement for you for your self-concept. And if this hasn't been you, but you wish that it were, maybe you've been at a lowest of low places. Maybe you've been at a spot recently or in the relative recent past where you felt like you got knocked down way lower than you ever wanted to go. And maybe you've wanted some encouragement and also some help in not only getting back on your feet, but turning your life into something more than it ever was before. Either way, if that's you or the previous version, previous side, come on, my friend, I've got some vitamin D grant just for you that you do not want to miss. Welcome to you. My name is D. Grant Smith, and yes, I am the growth farmer for personal development using a combination of spirituality and storytelling and bringing the two together to illustrate to you some very amazing, life-changing, and transformational ways for you to revolutionize your life, your relationships, and your future. And we talk about self-concept a lot here on this channel. So if you're familiar with the works of Neville Goddard, then you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And there's other people that have talked about self-concept as well, but Neville usually gets the cake or the credit when it comes to that stuff. So here's what I want to position and propose to you when it comes to going from a place where you felt like you were pretty solid, maybe pretty strong, and then you face something you didn't think you ever would, or you thought, yeah, if I go through that, that's not that big of a deal, and it ends up being a big deal. Maybe to the place where it knocks you down, not just a peg, but it knocks you down on the ground, or knocks you down through to a place of rock bottom, or maybe even lower than that, to a place that feels like it's 20 stories below rock bottom. And if you know my story, you know that I've been there. I was there about 6 years ago when I went through a very unexpected divorce. And side of the story that I haven't really talked about a whole lot was my former partner told me about a year before that happened that she wasn't very satisfied with the relationship and she was thinking about divorce. And I was like, you're not going to divorce me. Like, you've said several times that, like, I'm the greatest dude you've ever known. You're not going to divorce me. You're just unhappy. You need to get over it. Well, I dismissed that thought. And a year later, that's exactly what happened. And I thought that I was able to face that kind of thing. Actually, I thought that it would never, ever happen. And then when it did happen, it crushed me because I had based my whole self-concept around my worthiness being married to her. I wasn't solid on my own. So when I lost the relationship, I lost the foundation for everything that I thought made me, me. And I had to decide, am I going to let this thing end me? And I did contemplate going down that road several times. Or am I going to choose to let this situation be something that fuels me forward into a different life? And I chose the latter. Now, as I've been thinking about this subject and thinking about situations in my life and situations in the lives of the people that I've been working with in coaching, all of us are going to go through difficulties. All of us are going to go through challenges and trials and stuff that we don't think that we asked for. But what if part of us did in our unconsciousness or in the spiritual realm of the decisions that we made before we actually came and embodied this human physical body? If you have any understanding of soul contracts or karmic relationships or any of that stuff. It's a whole thing about how before we came into humanity, before we became people, we had agreements. We as souls and spirits said, hey, I want to have this experience in the human experience. And so I'm going to agree to do these things. And we come into life not remembering those things we made before we were a human body, when we were just a spirit body. And I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, by the way, but I am coming into a greater understanding of this process and realizing that I think I made some soul contracts and I think I made some agreements before I got here, because there's been a lot of things that have happened in my life that I did not consciously sign up for. How about you? So I've been thinking about this because after I went through divorce, I thought that was the last time I would ever experience heartbreak. And it hasn't been. I've experienced heartbreak since then. And I've experienced heartbreak with particular people that I loved and continue to love wholeheartedly. And I'm realizing that the closest relationships that we have with people are not necessarily foolproof or bulletproof from them being avenues for us to feel triggered and us to get heartbroken. And they're not trying to consciously break our hearts. What we are doing is fulfilling the agreements that we made before we got here, of going through this evolution of our consciousness and coming into the fullness of who we really are. And as I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about the illustrations of this. And I'm going to pull out 3 movies now to illustrate this point. And they're all relatively action-based movies, so it makes perfect sense. But there's the first time that the lead protagonist character faces their antagonist doom, and they think they're ready, but they're not. And they lose, usually quite handily. And then they decide, after going through a rebirth of sorts, that that's not the end of the story, and they want another chance. They want to prove themselves, and also they want a chance at redemption, because they don't want that defeat to be the thing that defines them. Now, here are 3 examples. Luke Skywalker against Darth Vader, Rocky against Clubber Lang, and Batman against Bane. Of course, I'm referencing the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy movies there, and not the terrible Batman and Robin movie. But in all 3 of those instances, the protagonist, Luke Skywalker, Rocky Balboa, Batman, faced off against the antagonist, Darth Vader, Clubber Lang, aka Mr. T, and Bane. Not once, but twice. And the first time, in all 3 of those situations, they thought they were ready for that fight. And in a lot of ways, they kind of underestimated the depth of the challenge that they were really facing, because they were facing the best that there was at that time, at whatever capacity that was. And, you know, Darth Vader is considered to be one of the all-time greatest villains ever, so that's not somebody you necessarily want to underestimate. Anyhow, that's the biggest challenge they'd ever faced. And they had done some preparation work, and they weren't just like rookies, but they weren't ready for that level of challenge. Also, it was part of their story to face defeat in that capacity. That's something else for us to recognize as we think about the journey that we're on, because we can go through very difficult situations and beat ourselves up for not being better than we thought we were supposed to be. Not being bigger, not being stronger, and I say bigger, like not being bigger internally, not being more confident, not having all of our stuff together, not being as prepared as we could have been. But what if we were supposed to face that challenge and we were supposed to lose when we did? We were supposed to lose the way that we did, so that we could learn the lessons of that experience, so that that could be a catalyst for us to completely transform our self-concept. Because what if up until that point, our concept of self had been strong in places, but incredibly weak in others, and we couldn't see the weaknesses that we were in because we didn't have the eyes to see, until we went through the terrible, painful experiences or heartbreak or cataclysmic disasters that wrecked everything that we thought we knew was true. We couldn't see that part of ourselves until we had to face the reality of what it was that was actually going on beneath the surface. Those underlying stories, those underlying childhood traumas or emotional wounds, or unconscious, subconscious, defeatist thoughts and beliefs. And in doing the retrospective work, in doing the introspective work of looking at our stories more completely, more fully, asking ourselves some deeper questions of what is the story that's going on in here inside of me that was reflected by this experience or by this series of experiences? What is it that caused me to go through this heartbreak? Because I don't want to experience this again. And also, I want to heal and rise above this situation so that if I ever face this again, it doesn't destroy me. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but I've been through some challenges this year in particular, and more specifically over the last week or so, that brought me face to face with some things that crushed me several years ago. And in facing those things again, it was a different me that faced it. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, I didn't like a single second of it. But the old me was not operating anymore. And it didn't debilitate me. It didn't crush me. I didn't go into self-defeatist mode. I sat there, I breathed it in, and I said, okay, there's still something in my self-concept that still needs to be worked on because everything is a mirror. And I'm not blaming anybody for anything that's happening to me. I recognize that I'm responsible for this. And it's up to me to change that part of my story. And so that's why I'm here today, sharing with you guys this perspective. We're going to go through difficulties and challenges in our lives. And it might be difficult for you to hear me say that the difficulties and the challenges are either A, things that you agreed to experience before you got to Earth, and or B, you're still the cause of it because everything is a reflection. And there's something inside your self-concept that's being reflected back to you when you're going through challenges and difficulties. And also, what if this is all a part of the greater story, where the universe is really working out everything in your favor and bringing the best to you, but preparing you for the experience of the best being available to you. And in order for you to be ready for the best, you've got to be your best. And to be your best means you have to go through fire. Because if we go back to those movie references I mentioned a few minutes ago, Luke Skywalker, Rocky Balboa, and Batman, in those three film series of Star Wars, Rocky, and the Dark Knight trilogy, the rematch was a different fight, wasn't it? Luke Skywalker faces off against Darth Vader. He's not the kid that's naive and thinks he's got it all going on. He's smart, he's strategic, and he has the Force in way greater capacities than he ever did before. When Rocky faces off against Clubber Lang, the second time, he's a completely different guy. Not only has he been training with Apollo, but he's turned into a different fighter. But even in the middle of the second round, when he starts to get thrown around a little bit and starts to get beat up, he breaks the strategy that he and Apollo had. And he goes into this different form of self-concept. And you can see it. I'll rewatch this movie again on Saturday night, a couple nights ago, because it's my favorite movie. And also, when I go through serious challenges, that's the thing that gets me through. But Rocky continuing to get beat up by Clubber the second time, and then laughing it off and saying, my mom hits harder than that. That was his new self-concept. That was the self-concept of him saying, nothing is going to stop me. I know who I am. I'm not afraid of anything, and nothing is going to stop me or push me around. I own this. That's self-concept in action. And Batman, going back to the Dark Knight trilogy, does that the second time when he faces Bane again. And all three of those rematches had to happen for the character of each one of those people, each one of those characters, to elevate to an exponentially higher level, to then be able to go on and do greater and greater and greater things. And the same thing is true in our lives. We are going to go through challenges. We are going to go through obstacles. We're going to go through difficulties. We're going to go through things that feel like they're breaking us, like they're destroying us. For me and my story, I needed to go through that experience that I went through when I got divorced, because I needed to see the broken parts of my self-concept, and I needed to choose for myself that I'm going to be a solid person and not a broken person. And from that, I wrote a whole book about the self-love journey that I was never on until I went through that experience. I didn't know what love was. I didn't know that I was a codependent person until I went through that experience. I had to have that experience to open my eyes to see what I was really dealing with, what was really going on inside of me. And from that, tremendous, amazing, monumental healing has taken place, not just in my own life, but in my relationship with my former partner. Actually, I don't have the show title for this, but she's invited me to be on her podcast. I'm going to be doing that in the next couple weeks. I love this woman immensely. I have an incredible fondness for her, and our relationship is night and day better than it probably was when we were even married. Healing happens when we go through the fire. And in other relationships in my life where there has been brokenness and there has been difficulty and there's been pain, there's still love there, because love is who I am. I didn't have that as part of my self-concept before I went through trial and difficulty and pain. But as I have been at times brought face to face with fears, deepest, darkest, scariest fears, standing face to face with it, I'm not the same guy that I was before. My self-concept is different. I have, like I've been talking to you guys about in all of the videos over the past couple weeks, I have the confidence like a lion. And I don't care how big or how bad that situation or circumstance is, it's not going to break me because I know who I am. And that is the story that I'm living. Now I'm continuing to ask myself questions of what is going on inside of me when I do feel fear, because fear doesn't go away. But I'm not letting fear tell the story of who I am. I'm doing like what I said in a previous video of letting fear be a waypointer for what's going on inside of me that still needs to change. You have the opportunity to do that too. Do you want to live a story where even after your most difficult, painful defeats, you rise up again? And when you get the opportunity to have a rematch against the thing that used to destroy you, used to cause you pain, used to rip your heart out and trample on you, this time you're a different person. This time you can look that fear in the face and go, no, this time I win. You want to have that kind of confidence and that kind of self-concept? Awesome. I want to help you do that too. That's why, for a very limited time, I am coming alongside everybody that joins into the Unleash Your Inner Lion program to awaken your confidence and your power. I'm coming alongside every student that comes into that course, and I will be working with you one-on-one to revolutionize your self-concept so that no matter what your past experience has been, you're not going to repeat the past defeats. You're not going to live out of that old self-concept anymore. You're going to fully step into your power, own your voice, and not be afraid to tell whatever it is, fear or doubt or worry or anxiety. Nah, you're dealing with a different person now. Let that be you. I'll drop into the description below the link to this course and the link to this special program, which, by the way, me coming alongside and working with you one-on-one is a bonus $350 value that I'm giving for everybody that joins up until December the 10th. So get in now. The value of the free coaching session more than pays for the course itself. Trust me, you don't want to miss this opportunity. All right. If you're on board with this and taking your life and your self-concept to another level, drop down in the comments and let me know. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate you. I love you because I am love and I am Vitamin D Grant and I do believe in you. And I will see you, my friend, again very soon. Hopefully inside the Unleash Your Inner Lion program. I look forward to seeing you in there.